Hey everyone, Andrew back again and welcome to another video, and today, as you can tell from the title, I'm here with my top 20 old school slashers. Now this is actually a video response to Horrific Nightmares JM, who recently uploaded his top 25 80s slasher series, which was really good. Now I'm not going to restrict myself to the 80s. I could easily do so, but there's a few other old school slashers that are my all-time favourites that had to be on this list that don't fall within the 80s. So this is just old school slashers, and I do intend to do a separate video. It's probably not going to be a top 20, but it'll be a top something, probably top 10 modern slasher videos, so that will probably be uploaded within the next week or two, so stay on the lookout for that. Anyway, if you're not subscribed to Horrific Nightmares JM, I will be leaving his link in the description box below. Great horror YouTuber, got a great taste in horror movies, and he uploads pretty regularly and really good content, so definitely check him out. Anyway, with that being said, let's get on to this list. Okay, so first up we have April Fool's Day, and this has always been a favourite of mine. I can remember watching this very early on when I really got into collecting slasher films, and it's always remained one of my favourites. I know people aren't big fans of it in some cases, but hey, I've always enjoyed it. I really like the twist ending. It has some pretty good kills in it, and it's a lot of fun and has really good characters as well. So that is April Fool's Day. Next up we have House on Sorority Row, and this really needs no introduction. It's an absolutely classic slasher from the 80s. Great movie, really awesome setting, and good characters in this as well, so this definitely had to be on the list. Next up we have Stage Fright, and this movie is awesome. It's pretty unique, especially in terms of the killer and the killer's outfit. Really awesome stuff, and I also love the storyline / setting within this movie. Got some really awesome kills in it, some pretty memorable set piece scenes as well, so that is Stage Fright. Next up we have Evil Laugh, and this movie is awesome. It's really cheesy, but that's what I love about it, and it's pretty underrated too, because I hardly ever hear anyone ever mention this one. So this one is pretty unique. It's similar in that aspect to Stage Fright, but for different reasons. But yeah, it's pretty unique. It's about a group of medical students who go to an old orphanage and clean it up in the hopes to reopen it, and there's a mysterious killer picking them off one by one. As I said, super cheesy. The kills are really cheesy. There's one really cheesy one with the microwave, which is pretty hilarious. This has some pretty cool characters in it as well, including one that's really obsessed with horror, so that's pretty awesome. But yeah, that's Evil Laugh. Next up we have Silent Night, Deadly Night, and this is an absolute staple within the 80s slasher genre, and for good reason. It's an absolutely fantastic film, easily the best Christmas themed slasher in my opinion. Next up we have Intruder, and I've always been a big fan of this movie. It's a lot of fun, and the setting is like nothing else in any other slasher film because it is set in a supermarket. I work in a supermarket myself, so it just makes this movie even more cooler to me. It is a little bit predictable in regards to the killer, but that really doesn't take too much away from this movie. Again, the setting is absolutely awesome. It has some really good kills in this one as well, so that is Intruder. Next up we have Killer Party, and this is just absolutely awesome. I love this movie. This is actually a burn on demand from the Warner Brothers Archive collection. Sadly, this has never had an official disc-based release. It must be a rights issue, because I'm really surprised that Scream Factory or Arrow Video or some company hasn't released this on Blu-ray already. It's an absolutely fantastic slasher film, and it's almost like two movies in one. The first half sort of plays out like a traditional slasher, and then the second half takes a completely different turn. I don't really want to spoil anything if you've never seen it before, but it is great, and that is why it's part of this list. Next up we have Chopping Mall, and I know a lot of people don't really call this a slasher film. I consider it a slasher, and I actually like to call this one a mechanical slasher because it involves robots. So it is really unique in that aspect, which is one of the big reasons why I like it so much, because it's completely different to any other slasher out there. I also absolutely love the shopping mall setting as well, so that is Chopping Mall. Next up we have The Mutilator, and I don't really consider this to be an amazing movie, but in terms of a slasher I think it really kicks ass, especially for the kills. Now obviously for a slasher film, being a slasher movie, you want really, really awesome, creative and pretty different kills throughout a film, and this movie definitely delivers on that aspect. It is amazing when it comes to the kills. Some of my favourite slasher kills are within this movie. My favourite would definitely be the beheading of the police officer, but there's a lot of other really, really awesome death scenes and kills within this movie, and it definitely makes the movie what it is. So that is The Mutilator. Next up we have Nightmare Beach, and this is also known as Welcome to Spring Break. If there was ever a absolutely underrated 80s slasher movie, this is definitely it. This is super underrated. Like Evil Laugh, this is another one that I hardly hear anyone ever talk about, and I have no idea why, because it is really, really good. I love the beach themed setting within this movie. It doesn't really focus on a massive cast, but the cast is really, really good in it. And I definitely like the killer in this. The killer rides a motorbike, so the deaths sort of involve that, and it's pretty unique in that aspect, pretty different. But yeah, this one is super underrated. Hopefully one day it actually gets a Blu-ray release, because yeah, it's an absolutely fantastic slasher film. So that's Nightmare Beach or Welcome to Spring Break. And it would not be a slasher list if I didn't include a Friday the 13th movie. Now this is really difficult for me to pick one, because there's three that on any given day I consider to be my favourites for different reasons, and that is Friday the 13th Part 2, Parts 3 and Part 6. So Part 2 has one of my all-time favourite kills within the series, which is the machete to the wheelchair guy's death scene. I forget his name in the movie. That is absolutely awesome to me. Very, very mean-spirited and very brutal. But it's always remained one of my favourite kills within the series. And then, of course, Amy Steele's in it. Fantastic final girl. Then we have Part 3, which probably has some of the most funnest characters, in my opinion, from the series, and a lot of really cool death scenes, and an absolutely fantastic ending, and my favourite portrayal of Jason. And then we have Part 6, which also has a lot of really, really good death scenes. I love the resurrection of Jason, and it's got a great 80s vibe to it. So I only really have to pick one, though. I can't pick three, that's cheating. So for now, I'm probably going to go with Part 3 overall. That really probably is my favourite film from the franchise, so we're going to go with Part 3. Next up we have Maniac, and this is another one that a lot of people seem to go back and forth about whether this is a slasher film or more of a serial killer film, and it's kind of a fine line, to be honest. I definitely consider this to be a slasher film, but it's also a character study, and an absolutely fantastic one at that. Frank Zito is one very, very nasty guy in this movie, and this movie is just absolutely brutal. It has some really, really good memorable kills in it. As I said, the character of Frank Zito is very, very nasty, and it's got a very unnerving, really dirty, grimy feel to the film as well, which fits it perfectly. It's always been one of my favourites, so not much more to say about Maniac. And next up we have The Burning, and this doesn't really need too much introduction. It's an absolute classic, and it really wouldn't be a top slasher list without talking about this movie somewhere within the list, so it has popped up now. Great camp theme slasher, really, really memorable kills within this. I really love the younger, more realistic age campers within this movie. And yeah, that's basically it. It's an awesome camp theme slasher. Next up we have Sleepaway Camp, and just like The Burning, this is pretty much a camp slasher staple from the 80s. Very, very popular, and for good reason. It is absolutely fantastic. Again, like The Burning, it has realistically aged campers, and I definitely prefer this slightly more than The Burning, which is why it's further along on the list. But yeah, this is an absolute classic, and I'm sure everyone is pretty familiar with the twist ending, which is still pretty shocking upon repeat viewings. Great ending, by the way. But yeah, this is an absolute amazing camp themed slasher movie, so that's Sleepaway Camp. Next up we have Slaughter High, and this is an absolutely awesome slasher film. It's kind of one that, again, that I don't really hear too many people ever mention, which is a shame, because it's one of the best from the 80s in my opinion. I've always been a massive fan of this one, and I really need to pick up the Blu-ray, because for the longest time I was hoping someone would release it on Blu-ray. Vestron have, so I really need to get on that. Anyway, back to the movie itself. Marty, there he is there on the cover, absolutely awesome killer within this movie, and it's probably the only slasher film that I can think of that has its own theme song, which is pretty cool. The characters are all really, really good in this. It's got some absolutely fantastic and really, really different kills throughout, which I'm a massive fan of. Very, very creative in that aspect. But yeah, Slaughter High is awesome. Next up we have Pieces, and this film is amazing. It took me a few watches to really, really get into it. But yeah, I absolutely love this film, and it's definitely cemented its spot very, very high amongst my favourite slasher films from the 80s. I really like the storyline. It's sort of got a whodunit storyline to it, which works really, really well within this film. Some absolutely fantastic set pieces within the kills and death scenes, which again I really, really like. So Pieces, it is cheesy, but that's definitely part of the appeal within this film, and as I said, some absolutely fantastic set pieces and a pretty good storyline as well for a slasher flick. Next up we have Child's Play 2, and the Child's Play series has always been overall one of my favourite horror franchises. Child's Play 1 and Child's Play 2 were the two very first horror movies I ever saw back when I was little, that got me into the genre. So yeah, it has a special place there for me, and the movies have always remained one of my all-time favourite in terms of horror and slasher flicks. Child's Play 2 is my favourite within the franchise. I like Chucky a lot more in this one. You get a lot more of his one-liners and personality, I think. And the kills are stepped up a notch, and the ending in the toy factory is absolutely awesome. So yeah, that's Child's Play 2. Next up we have My Bloody Valentine, which is my favourite standalone slasher film from the 80s. To me, this is the absolute perfect slasher film. It's got really, really good characters. It's got a really interesting storyline. I love the setting, which of course is the small mining town. I love the whole theme around Valentine's Day. The killer is absolutely awesome in this in his mining outfit. Has a really high body count. Has a lot of really good death scenes within this movie. A lot of different kills. And the other thing is the killer also leaves a little heart in a chocolate box as his trademark, which I think is pretty awesome. So yeah, in my opinion, just absolutely slasher perfection. So that is My Bloody Valentine. Next up, absolute classic from the 70s, the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. I don't really need to talk too much about this movie. I'm sure every man and their dog have seen this and agree with me that it is absolutely amazing. So this, without question, had to be on the list. And last but certainly not least, again, one that you're probably not surprised I am showing, and that is Halloween. I'm not going to talk too much about this. You guys already know that this is my favourite slasher film of all time, my favourite horror movie of all time. It's just absolutely perfect in every way, just incredible. So definitely had to be my number one, and that'll never change. So that is Halloween. Alrighty, so there you go. That was my top 20 old school slashers. Hopefully you've enjoyed this video. Let me know what you think of the movies that I have included in my top 20, and if you guys feel like doing a video response to this, definitely do so, or let me know some of your favourite old school slasher films in the comments section below. Also, once again, if you're not subscribed to Horrific Nightmares JM, his link will be left in the description box below, so please head on over and check him out, give him a sub. And yeah, that's it for this video. Hope you've enjoyed it, and thank you for watching.